Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby Chaos Coordinator, and one Chief Shenanigator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, I'm going to let my Echo, otherwise known as my co-host, introduce our guest to us, and then we'll let her introduce herself and see how they compare.
You know you love it when I do that. Mostly I do it to see if I can throw you off your pattern because that's always funny. And dear listeners, you pay more attention to us when I make him screw up. So if you want me to stop it, let me know. But otherwise, as long as you think it's funny, I think it's funny. So yes, we have a fantastic guest tonight. This is one of my I don't want to say oldest friend, but it's true. Oldest and dearest friends.
We're there, yeah.
We're there. We've known each other since Moses was a baby many, many, many years ago. Julie Barnson, she is a professional storyteller, which when we were thinking about more episodes we wanted to do, I was trying to think about, geeky people that I know doing nerdy things. And I thought about it and went, I don't know that we've ever had, at least not in my couple of years on the podcast, a nerdy storyteller come on. And so I thought, well, we should have one of those. So without any other further ado, we'll let Julie also introduce herself because I think she has a whole pattern for, how all of this works.
My name is Julie Barnson, and I tell stories. I tell stories that are myths, legends, personal stories, folk tales, fairy tales, but my specialty is ghost stories. I love to tell a spooky story, and I love when people get the shivers.
All right. So is there, so are you part of the Utahian, I don't know, however you say, people of Utah cult?
Oh, yes. I live in Utah.
Okay.
Happy to do it.
Are you desert side or mountain side?
Mountainside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She lives about 2 minutes away from me.
Yeah, I could walk there.
So you get snow then?
Oh yes. Not my favorite thing, but it comes with the territory.
I almost want to live in a place with snow because I saw this awesome video, and this is recording and will air around Halloween. So you might have snow people that are listening. I saw someone melting the snow in their driveway with a flamethrower, and I'm like, I want to live in snow just so I have an excuse to play with a flamethrower.
I have to get a flamethrower.
Yeah. And we don't have snow yet because Utah's a lovely place where we have 4 actual very discernible seasons. So now it is fall where we get the 40s in the morning and you have to bundle up to take the dog for a walk. And then by the afternoon, you're in the high 60s, low 70s, which is just an absolute beautiful thing because it means you can wear sweaters. You can go for walks. We have pumpkin fields. We have the leaves all change colors. We get a fantastic fall, and then it becomes winter, which we appreciate for the month of December because Christmas is awesome. And January and February are the months of vasty inversion where you get all of your minerals in one breath. And then it's spring.
Awful.
So
yes. But fall is very short. We have maybe 2-3 weeks of it.
So is there any truth to the rumor that in your senior year in Utah, they line you all up in the cult and you have to draw straws to see who's going to be the storyteller? Because I swear there's like a gazillion authors that come out of Utah. Is it like part of the initiation? You draw straws?
I have to bow out of that one because I grew up in Oregon and graduated in California. So
you grew up touching wedding. You get an excuse. Sasquatch was hunting you when you were a kid.
Yeah, she's a transplant, so we don't share those secrets.
Tradition.
So you migrated there because of all the writer types.
No, I migrated there because that was where I ended up going to school. I went to BYU. I met my husband at BYU, who's been on the podcast as well. And
he's the reason we did the steampunk anthology. It's all his fault.
Yes. And we stayed. We never expected to settle here, but this is where the job happened, and here we are.
Jobs are important. So is it true, Jana? Do you have like the high school kids get in a room and they draw straws on who has to be the author type?
Oh, it's not high school, man. We start much, much, much younger than that.
Okay.
I knew that I was going to be the author type in my group when I was about 6. So
is it Merriam-Webster that runs the cult, or is it some
you
other?
You think I can tell you these things? I don't even tell you all my pen names. Why do you think I'm going to tell you the deep, dark secrets of how I became an author anyway?
I mean, it's just me, you, and the dozens of people that listen.
I know. But yes, there are a lot of authors that come out of Utah. Part of that is because given that we have a whole lot of members of the LDS Church here, we don't drink and do certain other things, and thus we need something to do with our time. And so we are really encouraged to develop talents of whatever sort. So you get a lot of musical types that come out, dancers, authors, you name it. We tend to do that. And storytellers. That there are a lot in there. They've done a whole lot of things.
And it's a very supportive group.
I also think Sanderson teaching that class at BYU and then agreeing to film it for people who couldn't afford it.
Yep.
Put you guys kind of on the map because a lot of people started paying attention, which I actually think was mighty nice of him to do that. Because I know some professors get real stupid about, no, you got to pay to see me speak.
Well, he was taught by Dave Farland, also Dave Wolverton, who has tons and tons. I mean, he's a big name in fantasy as well up until he passed away. And even so, his books are still really influential in the genre. And so Sanderson was taught by him. Orson Scott Card did that class for a while. Dr. Marion Smith, who was amazing, taught that creative writing. So they have a whole creative writing program and creative writing classes that were always based on science fiction and fantasy if you wanted to go genre. And so BYU was really kind of the heart of that particular program. And that eventually led to somebody like Sanderson who got, lots of big names have come out of that. And then that's kind of spread to our community. And
we were all linked to it.
Mm-hmm.
So the other cool thing is since you mentioned Orson Scott Card, I'm old enough that when I was in 6th grade, we took a creative writing class. It was an elective, and I just, I could only take so many math and science. So I'm like, I'll take creative writing. That sounds easy. And we did through AOL dial-up where we sacrificed 12 robots to do it. Orson Scott Card called in and talked to our class. I don't know how the teacher arranged it, but he was always big about talking to like young writers and like kind of encouraging them.
Very generous, yes.
Yeah, he was. I just remember him talk. I don't remember anything he said other than like keep writing.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the best things he ever told people was, keep at it.
And I know our tour, dear listener, we know obviously we don't court the how to be an author audience because I don't sell enough books to anyone to listen to my advice. But if you're just into something as simple as gaming and you like creating the worlds your characters play in, I think you might find Brandon Sanderson's lectures that are available for free if you just type his name in to a search bar. You might find them useful even just for world building for like games.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're great for all sorts of stuff, whether it's world building for games. There's so many places where we use storytelling, which I'm sure Julie's going to get into because there's a history there. So I won't go into it, but storytelling is useful, and we ought to do the rest of our questions so we can get into interviewing.
I will say one thing it doesn't help is if you try to use those techniques to get out of a ticket, they will not believe the witch stole your odometer and that's why you were speeding. I don't know how I know this. I'm just saying it's not an excuse that'll get you out of the ticket. Okay, we'll move on. So because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, and we do have the religion questions, and we have to ask you them. Are you ready, Julie?
I'm ready.
All right, Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Firefly.
Excellent
forever.
Answer. Why?
Yep.
Why? Because it's that Western in space. It's got, and Star Wars, you could argue that it's similar, but it just had that family feel with the crew. They were all bonded. They worked well together. You had that whole Western feeling where you could have the frontier, but then you had the corrupt, city people. And those 13 episodes were wonderful, and I'm not over it.
I still hate Gail Berman, and I think there's a special 8th circle of hell for her for canceling that show.
Yeah,
it's true.
Special level just for her.
Lives on in our hearts.
It does. Although, in all honesty, if they hadn't canceled it early, where it was still at its peak, they might have ruined it. So that's, I guess, one plus. They didn't have time to mess it up.
It's true.
So
and
I try to count my blessings.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have a chance to see it go bad.
Because, in that era, you would have ended up with the musical episode. And somehow, even though it's in space, they would have had the Disney episode because why not? They always did.
I would have been there for it.
Probably.
I would have been there for it.
But it was just of the era where they did that. So
yes.
But I also haven't forgiven them for Fox Entertainment, where good shows go to die, because they also canceled Terra Nova. Dinosaurs, man. They canceled the dinosaurs.
They did.
So
all
sad.
right. Because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, go on.
Yes. Well, it was one of the first fantasies that I read. And I read The Hobbit, and then it was What Else Is There? And it was the Chronicles of Narnia. And I fell in love with those stories and read every single one of them. And it's just an old, childhood memory. I still have the original set that I had when I was a kid, and where I, dripped ice cream on the cover, and the cover kind of started to dissolve, and it's still there.
Where it's in the right order?
Yes. Oh, of course.
Thank
It's
you.
in the right order. Hello.
I had to check.
What do you mean there's a wrong order for those
Yes,
books?
there is.
Yes.
There's the order that he wrote them in, and then the order like time-wise. So they tried to rearrange them to put it by time. So they put The Magician's Nephew first, but The Magician's Nephew is the 6th book.
Mm-hmm. Not the first book.
Not the first book.
I will fight you on this because
Yes.
I get why they did it, because again, that chronology.
There's a chronology, yes.
The Magician's Nephew is not nearly as good of an introduction to Narnia and to what brings you into it and holds you together, because it's setting up a background that then informs the other books. And so it's really actually almost a prequel that should be separate from them. But that is a really long argument, and we don't have that kind of time.
But there will be blood.
It was the first Portal fiction I ever read.
Yes.
And I've loved Portal fiction ever since.
Yes. And yeah.
I wonder if that's Portal fiction before isekai was a thing, because I don't follow that the genres overseas.
I don't know which came first, but if like isekai was a thing in Japan before, but yes, it is a Portal fantasy, so it's very old.
And there were several, because Alice in Wonderland is a Portal fantasy. There's quite a few. If you start looking into older literature, and especially literature aimed at children, there was a lot of jumping between worlds that started long before it picked up the popularity it has recently.
And the pulp fiction, John Carter of Mars was a
I just looked it up. As a distinct label, it appeared in the 1990s, but like all Portal fiction, because it's just the Japanese word for it. But like all genres, it's been, Portal fiction's been around as long as we've been telling stories. So
yeah,
I don't know that any one of them came first. Okay, it's good to know. All right, so one of the crying shames of adulthood is we do stop asking each other the important questions. And thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, we are bringing that back. And I'm going to ask you, madam, what is your favorite dinosaur?
I'm not afraid to admit my age. It's the Brontosaurus, which apparently isn't exist because of Land of the Lost and Dopey, the dinosaur.
Land of the Lost is a good one. And Brontosaurus is a good one. You can generally tell a person's like general era when they were a kid by what their favorite dinosaur is by the what was on the TV.
Right. And it was Land of the Lost, and I was addicted, and Dopey.
Did you like the Land Before Time? Was that around when you were?
Not quite, no, but I did like it, and I watched it when my girls were teeny.
That's one of those ones where those kind of informed people. So were you still into dinosaurs as you grew, or was that something that sort of faded for you?
It faded, but I work with kids. I'm a school teacher. And so, that whole dinosaur thing, you got to be in on it, and you got to have an answer when the question is asked.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where you want to know if someone's a true fan. You don't ask them where they're like top 3. It's like, what's your 5th favorite? Insert random thing.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what you know. So did you watch the Jurassic Park and the other?
Yes. Oh yes. Well, the first Jurassic Park was brilliant. The later ones, occasionally I'll watch one and really love it, and then I'll fall off again. Eventually, I'll see them all.
I enjoyed it. I like Camp Cretaceous too. The 3rd season, they went to more mature themes, and it wasn't their target audience, so that kind of bothered me a little bit. Mostly because I had started watching it with my kid, and I had to stop because I'm like, no, you're not old enough for that. But I like the concept. It doesn't surprise. Everyone's like, well, why would they keep doing it if they knew it didn't work? And I'm like, when have you known failure to make somebody stop doing something bad?
Exactly. Well, in dinosaurs, it's still cool. You're going to keep trying. We just didn't do it right this time. Last time we got.
And even with everything Crichton tried to teach us, they brought direwolves back. They're trying to bring the woolly mammoth back.
Right, and
it's like that old meme. The science fiction author writes about the nexus of evil and why it's bad and we should never do it. And science says, let's invent the nexus of evil.
Yes, of course. So
let's do that.
It's what we're at. Human nature.
That's where we are with genetic engineering at the moment. The nexus of evil. All right, so we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So,
No,
coffee or
until
tea,
we are.
and how do you take it?
I actually like Creole Brew, brewed cocoa. And I like it with a couple of Splenda and milk.
I don't think I've ever heard. I mean, so it's hot chocolate? Is that different?
It is cocoa nibs that are brewed like a tea or a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So you would do it in a French press. So it's kind of like a chocolate tea.
I don't think I've ever heard of that. I mean, I've seen obviously hot chocolate. So is it thinner than hot chocolate?
Yes, it is. It doesn't. It's like drinking cocoa, the cocoa bean. So you take the cocoa nibs and you put it in hot water. You let it steep for 10 minutes. You pour it out. You sweeten it because it is unsweetened chocolate. But Creole Brew comes out with great flavors, and I like their maple flavor, and I like their pumpkin spice flavor, especially this time of year. And I do like the Creole Brew, and it means that it's not as much sugar or high in calories. You can control that.
Yeah, it's that time of year where I have to have my yearly pilgrimage for the pumpkin spice latte. I allow myself one a season because calories are a thing, and I'm trying to I'm trying for there to be less of me to love. But
you are a basic white girl when it comes to your.
I absolutely am. I mean, it's Han Solo season for all the basic white girls. We got to get the Uggs boots and the vests, right?
Yes, of course.
So, and we'll link to the Creole Brew if you're interested. Jana was kind enough to provide that, so I will link to that for anybody who's curious.
Get all the special flavors. They have peppermint, they have maple.
If you like chocolate, have you tried European sipping chocolate?
Oh yes, and that was because of Jana. She actually got me some, and
cool.
I did that. It was delicious. Did you think? Oh yeah, it was good. We went to France and had the chocolate every day, and it's not anything like here. I could live on that.
That was her and Jay. I did not go to France. I'm very sad about it.
Yes. My husband and I went to France and had the chocolate every day.
Did you have baguettes and say oui a lot? Because we
France? Pretty much just ate bread and chocolate. That was the entirety of our diet the entire time we were there.
That's an acceptable diet, I would think.
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong. Your dietitian might disagree, but what does he know or she?
It was 1 week. I'm not, leave me alone.
I remember. So we have a local chocolatier here. I think that's how you say the word. I've seen it in spelling. I don't think I've ever said it, but we have one of those here. It's several older ladies that retired from whatever their day job was, and they started making it. I guess all the neighbors were like, hey, this is good. You should sell it. So they did, and they started their chocolatier business, and they had it for a couple of years. They had the European, and I remember thinking, oh, it's hot chocolate. I'll try that. It was so sweet. I had to pass that on to my friend that was with me. And I'm like, yep, I'm not doing this. Give me my coffee, because this was just too sweet. I felt like my eyes were going to pop out. It was so sweet.
It's very good. And I do love the full-on creamy stuff, but
it was definitely
trying to cut back on calories. The Creole Brew is where to go.
Okay. Is that something that you do regularly, or is that like a special treat kind of drink for you?
I have it more regularly in the winter time. In the summer, no, it's not a daily thing. If we're talking daily stuff, then I'm a Cherry Coke Zero girl.
Cherry Coke, okay. I mean, if we're going with the flavored Cokes, I like vanilla Coke.
Vanilla is good, but once upon a time, I worked at Little Caesars, and they had Cherry Coke on the tap, and if you brought your own cup, you got free sodas if you were an employee. And I drank the Cherry Coke every day, and I still love my Cherry Coke, but I try and do it without the sugar now.
Can you still say pizza in your sleep?
Pizza. Yes, I can.
I remember when it was the little cartoon Caesar guy with the logo, and they sold the pizza in the rectangle shape.
Yes.
My parents used to get that when they would go on group date nights, and they never told us where they went or what they did. They just dropped the pizza off, left all the kids in one house, and they went and did whatever they did. Play cards, go to karaoke, I don't know. And I remember the square pizzas. We would fight for the ends, though, because they had more crust.
That was the pan pizza. They had the round pizzas was the classic, but pan was the square.
Does Little Caesars make it out to your neck of the woods out in Utah?
Yes, we have it, but I haven't worked there for a long
That's probably good. Your students probably want you, awake in class and, not exhausted for overnighters. It's a thing. They tend to get mad at you, Jana, if you fall asleep when you're the teacher. This is a rule of thumb.
No, they don't get mad at you. They make fun of you.
Well, the students will make fun of you. The staff might get mad at you.
Yes, that's a thing.
But see, the students would do terrible things. Can you imagine falling asleep in front of 22 wolves? Because that's pretty much what's going to happen when it's 6th graders.
There are Sharpies in my class, and they would use them on me.
I mean, I was wrestling trips when I was in high school, and falling asleep on the bus was always a risky endeavor. So I definitely understand.
Yeah,
but sleep is important, and most marker scrubs off. So
eventually,
and you can get away with a lot as long as you're winning.
Oh,
when it comes to sports, right? As long as you're winning, you could be as weird as you want to be. You're eccentric if you're winning. You're just strange when you're losing.
Of course,
that's the general rule of sports. Okay, so I don't want to interrupt her when she gets started, dear listener. So we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man. That's me this time, and then we'll jump right into the subject that brought us here.
The government underestimated the outbreak. The best medicines couldn't stop it. Now, the dead are walking the streets, and they're hungry. Zombie Patient Zero is 9 tales of flesh-ripping, brain-splattering mayhem from Bayonet Books, the boldest name in action and horror anthologies. From deep space to luxury resorts, nowhere is safe. Zip up your hazmat suit and dare to find out how it all went wrong. Zombie Patient Zero, from the deranged minds that brought you Contact This and Storming Area 51. Pick up your copy today in paperback or Kindle.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So, part of understanding the person who tells the stories is understanding the person behind the stories. So, how did you get interested in the fictional worlds that you now play with? Like, were you always a reader? Was it something your parents sort of pushed on you?
It's very funny because I came from the union of a high school cheerleader and the captain of the football team, or a football player. And they had me, who was a quintessential nerd. And I don't think they knew what to do with me, but I was always a reader. I was always drawn to fantasy and science fiction. I loved folktales. I loved fairy tales. When I discovered fantasy books, I read everything that was available at the time in my little teeny small town. I raided used bookstores and yard sales and all of those things, looking for whatever I could find that was of the fantasy bent.
So did you confuse them and play other sports besides football and cheerleading just to mess with their mind even more?
I did none of it. I was in drama and band.
At least band they understand, because those are at football games.
Well, my mom did play the clarinet for a little while, so she did understand that. But they were completely at a loss of what to do with me. And you did sword fight for a while. I did sword fight.
Oh, how did that happen?
My husband.
She married into it.
Wait. So he just kind of started hitting you with the sword, so you had to learn to defend yourself? Was it dueling on love at first duel, I guess?
Yeah, when he was a kid, he got into a medieval reenactment type combat league out on the East Coast, and he
SCA?
came out. It wasn't SCA. It was Dagger Hair. And he came out here, and we started dating. We got married, and he said, "Honey, remember when I told you I used to do that sword fighting thing in high school?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I really miss it." And I went, "Well, what do you do at that point?" "Okay, let's." And we did. We started a group here in Utah. They still play at the same park that we started years and years ago. And that's where we got Jana. She joined us.
It's called Dagger Hair? Like hair is
Dagger Hair. Dagger Hair, HIR. And our group here, now I can't even think of the name. It's been a long day.
It was Battle Guard for a very long time.
Yeah,
because
we
we
renamed it
changed
Battle
up
Guard.
rules. and now they follow the
What is it?
Belagarth rules.
Belagarth. That's
There's a lot of different things, but it's SCA, except with SCA, they tend to pad the people, so more armor, and the buffers are harder, and you'll get live steal. With the other groups, you put more padding on the weapons, and so everybody doesn't have to be armored, so it's a really easy in for high school and college students who don't have very much money and could afford foam to smack each other with over a lot of armor to keep it from hurting.
We used to run through the woods with padded weapons beating on each other. It was great.
So is it more LARPing or more HEMA?
It was really more of a battle, but we did work in the LARPing. We would bring it in whenever we could.
Okay. So it's melee combat. All right.
Yes.
Now that's important because part of that is what led to Julie doing storytelling.
Yes.
And I think that's the next question that we should go to is how did you jump from a consumer of all things story to a producer of all things story beyond, hey, you had kids and you had to tell them something to get them to shut up and go to sleep.
I think I have the answer to that, Jana.
Pay you money for that. What's that?
I bet when she accidentally stabbed someone, she had to come up with a plausible lie to the EMT and the sheriff.
Right, and that explains everything.
It explains everything.
No, when I was little, I was always a storyteller. When I went to school and my mom would ask, what was your day like? I would tell her in extreme detail to the point where her eyes would gloss over and she would say, could you just like get to the good parts of what you did during your school day? And so she actually cut me off. And, most kids, what did you do all day? And I told so much detail that she actually asked me to stop. I heard my first ghost story when I was 3 years old, and it scared me so bad that I cried. But then I went to my mom and said, tell it to me again. And then I learned it enough that I started telling other people and scaring them. And so I was telling ghost stories and stories at recess to all my friends. And that's what we did. And I would, anytime we were bored on car rides or sitting around, I would start telling stories. So it started from very young. But doing the sword fighting, we decided, hey, we should start doing things like, let's celebrate with feasts. And we would do events like that. And I would tell stories to entertain everybody at the feast.
So if you like ghost stories, were you into like Tales from the Crypt and Scary Stories, the black and white book that
The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark,
yep.
Alvin Schwartz. I have multiple copies. I have some at school that I share with my students, and I have some at home that they will never see.
Because they will destroy them.
Yeah.
And they're out of print and you can't get them anymore.
Yeah, I don't share.
Okay, but now I want you to tell them the most interesting part of the fact that you love spooky stories, because what happens when you read spooky stories?
I am a big giant chicken, and I scare myself all the time. I get scared so easily, and every season there is at least one night where I sleep with the lights on because I freak myself out, and I'm not afraid to tell it, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. So I love ghost stories, but I scare myself. And I am easily terrified.
Okay, so this leads to another question that always comes up with these is, why do you think people like hearing the scary stories? Because you have people who actually hire you. People pay you money to scare them.
I do.
What do you think drives that? Why does an audience want to hear a scary story over something else?
I was actually thinking about it, and I think I'm a cozy adrenaline junkie, because what happens in your body is exactly the same as if you were bungee jumping or doing a roller coaster. When you hear a good, creepy story, it gives you that adrenaline rush, that fight or flight. And so it is fun. And while I don't necessarily want to go on the high roller coaster all the time, this is a safe way to get that adrenaline rush. And people like that thrill. It's very interesting because people either really love ghost stories or they really hate them and can't handle them. And I don't hear a lot of, scary stories are okay. It's one or the other. It's very polarizing. But I think that it's the adrenaline rush in a lot of ways. Ghost stories have a very distinct purpose. And I talk to my students about this because I tell scary stories to them. It's a safe place to experience fear. you can come through watching a scary movie or hearing a scary story. You have that fear, and then you're fine. You're safe doing it. I would really much rather hear a scary story than hear a scary diagnosis that I'm going to have to live with, or, look at the bills and, talk about money and budget, or deal with, getting fired. There's so much scary things in real life. I would much rather choose the vampire or the ghost.
And that's one of the things that when people say they don't like scary stories, you have to dig a little deeper, because they mean scary stories or they mean the gory slasher fic type stuff
True.
that Hollywood likes to put out. Because there is a distinction, because like most people wouldn't consider, by modern standards, there's no blood, there's no gore, there's no gratuitous violence. But Birds was a horror movie that had me afraid of birds for a while, that Hitchcock put out.
My mother's phobia is birds, and that was the scariest movie she ever saw. I can't even have her talk about it without her remembering it and having a reaction to it. But
and Hitchcock was great at that.
Yeah, it's true. They don't, there are categories, but I think that, they don't want the slasher flick gore, but they also have a hard time necessarily being scared and don't want to come home to a dark, empty house and have to deal with their own fear.
Or giant dolls.
That.
Well, I think there's the other angle that people forget, is that it's in human nature to be scared, because the ones of our ancestors, and we go way back, that weren't afraid of the noise in the dark were the ones that got eaten. And so they didn't have kids and reproduce. So Darwinism sort of took care of them, or fate, whatever. And so the reason you chase that high is because it's a survival instinct.
Exactly. And it lets you know that you can do scary things and survive. You'll be fine.
Absolutely. So you've got the one short story we talked about in the pre-show that you've got out, and you've edited an anthology with your husband. But so when you say you tell stories, are you doing more live events like Bardic style, or?
Yes, I am a storyteller of the oral tradition. So way back, ancient times, when there was no writing except for paintings on cave walls. It's one of the first performance mediums, is to just sit around the fire and tell stories. What happened on that hunt? What happened, in your life, and in, the things that are going on around you. And it's funny because it's a universal art form, because we are all storytellers, because communication is storytelling. Whenever we talk about what happened at the store, what happened with our day, what happened when we were children, all of those things are stories. I just elevate it to an art form a little bit more, and to something that I can perform.
I have the oral ones can stick with you. That's one of the vivid memories I have from when I was in Cub Scouts. Is I can't remember his last name, but Mr. Rick, I remember, and he would dress up and he would do the something McGee on the
cremation of Sam McGee.
Of Sam McGee, yes, so good.
And he would do it in voice with the costume, and I just, that kind of stuff sticks with you. And then, this is not exactly the same as scary storytelling, but I went to a reenactment once, and one of the reenactors that was with us was a preacher in his day job, and his wife was hounding him because he should have been writing his sermon that day, but he took off to go to the reenactment, so he got away with it by making it work-related, because he preached one of Cotton Mather's, which is a really old period fire and brimstone, and now I know why they were the way they were, because he was telling them ghost stories, essentially, to scare the crap out of them.
He really was. He was telling horrifying things. When you go back and you read some of the stuff that was in that book, very scary. History of witchcraft, and yeah.
So how did you get into, obviously you started telling your friends, but telling stories to your friends and being a professional oral storyteller, there's a leap there. How did you make that jump? Because that's something a lot of people said, oh, that'd be cool, but how do you actually do that? Nobody knows.
It's very hard. It's hard because there's not a lot of guidance in how to do it. You just kind of have to do it. I took actually a class on storytelling in college, and it really was a light bulb moment for me, because I had been a storyteller my whole life. I didn't know that it was an art form. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I didn't know you could be a storyteller. And then I discovered that not only could you be a storyteller, we actually had one of the biggest storytelling festivals in the nation here in Utah, with the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival. So I was taking this class. I found out about the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival. I said to my husband, hey, we got to go. So the very first event that we went to was their Scary Stories night. And we went and fell in love. I went back the next day. I attended for years and years. My schedule doesn't always allow for it now, but it is near and dear to my heart. And it was, this is what I am, and this is what I should be doing. And so I started just by volunteering. I would volunteer for anybody that would hear me. I told in my daughter's classes, I told to friends, I told to parties, I told at, church events. I'm going to cough. Hold on. And all of those things. And I kept saying, someday I'm going to be a professional storyteller. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a professional storyteller. I was 36 and I said, I'm going to be a professional storyteller someday. And it came to me, when were you going to do that? What on earth are you waiting for? Are you waiting to have grandkids? Are you waiting to, what is holding you back, and why can't you do it now? And that was a terrifying moment for me. And I decided that I would have a policy of, I am not going to be a chicken anymore. And I signed up for my town's arts festival to do storytelling. And a friend of mine showed up. I didn't know her then, but she showed up, and she was a member of the Utah Storytelling Guild. And she got me involved with that. And it's taken me all kinds of places. It's been wonderful. So sorry.
So I want you to tell them about one of my favorite things that you got to do in this thing. And you were, for a couple of years there, a professional storyteller with the Utah Ghost Tours.
Yes,
and
I was.
This is a thing that I've seen all the places I've traveled, almost all of them at least, I have found a ghost tour or some other thing where you can go and you can hear the stories of the different places that are haunted, that have all these kinds of things. And this was a thing that they started in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
And you ended up a part of that. And that's an interesting storytelling gig, because it's that combination of what is the spooky, scary, paranormal things that make you wonder, and what is the actual factual, this happened and we know that it did. So I would love to hear you tell them a little bit more about that, because it is one of my favorite things that you've done as a storyteller. And as storytelling, when I go out and about, I want to look for those storytelling gigs, those ghost stories, because they're amazing. And they're all over in every state that I've ever been to.
Every time I travel, we look for a ghost tour. And that's what we did. It was actually my birthday. And we decided let's do the ghost tour. There is one in downtown Salt Lake. And so we actually went on the tour 3 times. And then I heard through channels that they were taking auditions. And it was like, I have to. So I did. I auditioned. And for 3 years, I was a tour guide for the Salt Lake City Ghost Tour. We rode on a luxury bus. I had to ride backwards because I was facing all the passengers. And I had one of those little, handheld walkie-talkie microphone things, not very high quality. But while I was directing the bus driver, I was telling the stories of all the haunted spots of downtown Salt Lake. And the truth is that ghost tours are really history tours with some, flickering lights and cold spots and things. But, it's what makes, if you say, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to go on a history tour, doesn't sound as exciting as I'm going to go on a ghost tour and I'm going to find out what haunts downtown Salt Lake.
Them's fighting words. You're in trouble now.
One thing I will tell you, because I was a docent when I was a history undergrad doing tours of historic sites, and I was a intern at Valley Forge National Historic Park. That's and amazing. Walking backwards is a skill. Walking and talking backwards is also a skill, and you have to do we're walking.
Everybody follow me. Everybody.
You got to learn the hand motions, but you got it down. So we know you've done this before.
I have.
One of the times, though, like how much, when it comes to the stories, how much of it was you reading a script? How much of it were you preparing? Because I've heard ghost tours where I'm like, you're not even getting the history right. Like, no, that's not right. That's not what it would have been. Like, and as a historian, I'm hearing that and I'm like, I mean, it might sound scary to the idiot who doesn't know any better, but like, that's just factually incorrect.
It's all about the story. And we do have as many facts as we've been able to find, it's really hard to piece things together. And eventually you have to go with what makes a good story in a lot of cases. But I know for story tours, which I was a part of, they did a lot of research and really tried to work in as much fact as possible. So that is part of it. But let me see if I can think about how we did it. I didn't have a script. There was a script, but when you're a storyteller, you actually don't memorize anything. And I say that, but some storytellers do memorize their work. But generally, you kind of piece together what happens first, what happens second, what happens third, and learn what happens next in a story. And that's how you put the story together. And when you go to tell a story, it's like running a movie in your head. You're really just describing what you're picturing in your head as the story happens. So I had to work really hard because I don't remember numbers very well. I'm very bad at that. So to make sure I had dates right and names right so that I was at least somewhat accurate when I told the story. But I do not tell a story the same way twice, and I do not tell a story word for word.
So the one I was thinking of, they were talking about a site that was haunted related to the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
And they were using weapons that didn't come out for 100 years in the Civil War. So like that just, no. They were using flintlocks back then. They were not using percussion caps, I guarantee, unless there's time travel involved. This story just doesn't pass muster. So, I mean, those details matter. But what you just described as far as not just memorizing the script is the difference between an orator and a storyteller.
Right.
These orators would memorize the script. That's what,
Exactly.
Forensics in high school was. We were repeating what someone else wrote and trying to do it in an entertaining fashion.
It's a very fluid way of performing, and it very much involves the audience because the definition of storytelling that I've heard is that you are going to use words in such a way that you create the image in your head in the minds of somebody else. And I do it orally, writers do it with the written word, but you are creating an image in someone else's head. So without your audience, when I'm doing a performance, having the audience working right with me, I can see whether or not they're engaged, whether or not, if they're leaning forward and showing that they're listening. And if I can do other things with my body, with my voice, with my energy to try and draw them in more so that synergy between the two of us, storyteller and audience, happens. And in relation to history, that's the most important part when you're really doing a ghost tour and when you're doing a performance for storytelling, because you've got to have that audience moment. So
there are two ways to do those kinds of tours. Some tour guides prefer it to be very interactive and they involve the audience. It's a back and forth. The discussion, the story still goes on, but there is some back and forth. And some prefer it's more they're just talking. And I don't say talking at them because the audience is still involved, but they're not actively involved. Did you have a preference? I'm not as interactive as I would like to be. I'd like to think I was, but I'm really not. I'm more of just a talker and just be really engaging when I'm talking, mostly because I get in my head and then I kind of forget the audience is there. Okay. So since you like ghost stories, this is a random thought that popped to me. Paranormal is all about paranormal fiction, is that kind of stuff in modern. So when you see ghosts in paranormal urban type settings, do you want them to be like, neutral, good, bad, evil? Do you want them to be how do you envision them in stories for your preference? I want the scary. I really do. So, so none of the paranormal romance with the ghosty, huh? I'll read it and I enjoy it very much. But ultimately, if I'm looking for the ghost story for me, I want the spooky. I'm trying to think, I still had the scary stories to tell in the dark, but my first actual proper story with a ghost, I think, was Ghost Cadet. Are you familiar with that one? I don't know it. So it's set, basic premise is this young boy and his older sister who doesn't want anything to do with him are raised by a single mother. Their father has died. They go to visit their paternal grandmother for the summer, who's very hands-off, old school. Kids should be seen and not heard. Go play outside, come back when dinner's ready. And she happens to live outside Newmarket, which is where the VMI had the battle at Newmarket. And so he's touring the battlefield, and because he's bored, he doesn't know any but local kids. And because he's the strange city kid, they're kind of picking on him. So he goes off by himself. He ends up meeting the ghost cadet who died during the battle. The cadet in question actually existed. No actual proof of his ghosthood has been proven, and it's about him interacting. It's a coming of age with him and this ghost.
I love it.
It was really cool to see this kid kind of growing up. And then you're also, by the way, learning the history of the battle and the Field of Lost Shoes and all of that.
Of course, that's perfect. Yeah,
and it's kind of aimed at young boys who often get left behind in reading, because a lot of literature at that age is aimed towards the girls who tend to read more.
It's true, and that's a shame. It really is.
But yeah, that was my first proper introduction to ghosts, and I've been fascinated by the concept ever since. Although I've never seen one, so I'm still skeptical.
I like to say that I don't think about it very much. I want a good scary story, and I don't necessarily want to think about when it's true, because I've had things happen and I know that things happen, and I try not to think about it.
So do you still check under your bed when you walk in a dark room?
Yes.
Are you doing that?
Yes. Well,
I remember
because sometimes you don't want to check under the bed, because what if there's something there, and maybe it's better off that you don't know.
I remember my stepdad told me that once. He's like, JR, what are you going to do if something's actually there? Because I would peek under.
So,
I'm like, I didn't get that far. Shut up.
I told you, I scare myself all the time. And I am a big giant chicken. And so I guess I'm a cozy adrenaline junkie, because I do it to myself. I know I do it to myself.
Stories. You're giving Amazon more genres to create.
Please.
There we go.
Let's go.
So,
all right. Well,
hold on. Do you have a favorite scary story? Obviously, you can list some that you've told with your various oral tradition stuff, or any that you've read. But do you have a favorite scary story that you revisit?
No, I have many. And I have the ones that scare me. I have the ones that I like to tell the kids. I love the old scary stories to tell in the dark stories. And those are classics, and I will tell them forever. I told them before I ever read them in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Wait Till Martin Comes was one that I told when I was in second grade, and I still tell it. There's so many. One of the ones that I really love to tell is, just dropped with the Story Arc podcast, and that is my true story of me and scary dolls, and how I scared myself so badly reading stories online about scary dolls. I have other favorite stories. One that actually happened to me in a few things, but is also combined with a classic ghost story that I was able to personalize it for my own life. I have stories. I love Victorian ghost stories, and I have told Victorian ghost stories, and playing around with short stories, literary short stories, and telling some of those when I can get permission to do it.
So you mentioned the scary dolls, and I can relate to that, because I'm part of the generation of young men who owned the My Little Buddy dolls.
Oh,
no. Had the Power Rangers. And that was the model they used for the Chucky horror movies that came out in the late 80s.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sometimes I'm kind of glad my mom threw that doll away at this point, because I mean, it's kind of good memories, bad memories, right? And of course, my sister had a good sister, but they didn't make that into a horror movie.
Yes, they did. Oh,
wait, did they?
And I saw the old Midnight Gallery show,
right?
Where the father bought his daughter a doll from when he was overseas, and they opened the box, the doll smiled. And, the Talking Tina Twilight Zone episode, and all those B-grade Saturday afternoon, shows that they would show, movies that they would show on TV when nothing else was on. And, you were trying to watch something that wasn't your dad watching football. Yeah, that was what I ended up watching, was all those scary
So before I forget, dear listener, her podcast that she mentioned where she tells all that on the Storyteller podcast, that is linked in the show notes if you check it out. I know if you're listening to us, you've got enough time to listen to more than just us.
Oh,
we
please
release
do.
3 times a week. So I link that in the show notes. You can check that out. I know this came out after I was a kid, so based on what you've said, it probably, but did you introduce your kids to Goosebumps, excuse me?
Goosebumps just kind of happened and they found it on their own. So no, the books were really popular. And I told my girls ghost stories. We watched all the scary Halloween Town, anything that was spooky and scary on the Disney Channel. We watched the Legend of Sleepy Hollow Ichabod Crane cartoon from Disney.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh, so
it's the greatest.
So good. And, all of those things. So they grew up with the scary stories just the same as, I did. And I made sure that they had a healthy dose of all things spooky.
Basically, what you're telling me is you passed on generational trauma like a good parent.
Yes, that's it's my job.
Absolutely. I can appreciate that. At some point in time, we've joked that we're going to make that a separate individual episode. The nostalgia episodes are always popular about passing on the generational trauma and the shows that matter to us.
Oh, yes.
It's true.
I was traumatized by this. Now I must show it to you. Yes.
Okay. So one of the things, because we're coming up on the hour, and we do try to keep these to an hour, but Jana had mentioned that one of the things that you were a part of was the Haunted Yuletide. We will have you and Jay, your husband, back because you edited this anthology.
I did. It was our
talk
COVID
about
project.
this closer to Christmas because I've also got a Christmas anthology coming out. So why not hit both with once? And I love short stories. I love holiday themed short stories. But Jana said there was something you wanted to talk about with this anthology. So I was not prepped. So I'm ready to be amazed, wowed, all the things.
Something related to, I did not know this, but this was our COVID project. So of course, if I was going to be involved in something, it would be Christmas ghost stories. But the truth of the matter is that ghost stories belong to Christmas more than Halloween. In the Victorian era, they told ghost stories at Christmas. And when you think about it, that's when the days are the shortest. So the nights are long and dark. Before there was television, before there was radio, when you had everybody home because nobody wanted to travel in that weather. So they were gathered around the fire. And what naturally happens is scary stories. And we have lost that tradition because of Halloween. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my Halloween, but because of Halloween, we get all the spooky storytelling out of our systems and we no longer really tell ghost stories at Christmas. And that's what Haunted Yuletide is about. It's bringing back, we should have ghost stories at Christmas. It's really the perfect time to tell those stories. And that's why we did it.
So is this one where you did the open call specifically to your Utah? How do you say the people of Utah, Jana?
Utahns.
We opened call to anybody that found it. And so we didn't just have Utah people, but we had many of the authors here that submitted because they are our friends and they like us.
That my problem with short stories is I actually, so I don't know if you're familiar with Girl Scouts, but Girl Scouts can start younger than boys can start Boy Scouts.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so my sisters were in Girl Scouts before I was old enough for Boy Scouts. I was a tag along for a lot of their weird activities. I say weird because I don't know what they did because I hid and read books because they were girls and they had cooties and they were gross. But one of the things is I actually learned to read on condensed versions of stories like the what do you call those? Reader's Digest versions.
Yes,
so
Reader's Digest, condensed readers, yes.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for short fiction. So my problem is Jana was like, no, JR, you've got to write the novels. Stop with the short stories. So it's probably a good thing I didn't see it.
That way.
She is. She's a slave driver. With the holiday fiction, though, one of the things you used to see a lot more of is I think they called them passion plays. They used to do religious themed ones that were designed to scare you back into faith or away from sin, I guess would be how they would do it. And so some of them wouldn't even be considered proper ghost stories or scary stories, but they serve that effect.
Moral tales.
Yeah, but they serve the effect too. Sort of like the Grimm's fairy tales and the Grimm's tales were very much like cautionary tales, more than they were intended to be. They became something more because the original meaning was lost when you're not running from, I don't know, woolly mammoths anymore.
Red Riding Hood is the one that it still holds its message, beware of strangers, don't be talking to the stranger in the woods. And that still holds that cautionary tale at its core and hasn't lost it.
Red Riding Hood also still has its relevance because we realize the value of a good axe, and now you're starting to see axe throwing venues pop up in all the cities for extracurricular activities because we realized we lost our way when we stopped carrying axes everywhere.
It's a thing.
So with the Grimm's fairy tales, that was something my very German grandmother always used to get very mad at the Disneyfication of all the tales. She's like, no, they're supposed to be scary. So I read through the notes I had with Jana when we were talking about this, and she had said you wanted to do a live performance. That was the thing we were going to do.
Yes, that is the thing we're going to do.
Are you ready?
Absolutely. And I will mute myself so I don't interrupt because I do that too much.
Okay.
And you should put her center screen instead of the haunted Yuletide thing. Press the button, Frank.
I will look into my camera.
Not you, her.
I'm supposed
I got to do it. Give me a second. There's a 2-step process. I got to figure it out. They changed everything.
All right.
Oh, come on. If I can't mock you, then who can?
Okay. That's the best I can do, Jana. They changed all the layouts.
Oh, rude.
We're okay.
It's all good.
I have a recurring dream. And this is true. I have a recurring dream. Some people have, recurring dreams that happen over and over again. My recurring dream is really dumb because I have a recurring dream where I wander through a house and that's it. And the only thing that changes is the house. And most of the time, the house is some kind of an impossible thing where it will be a poor rundown house with pea green carpet and dark wood paneling. But then when I round the corner, I will have an indoor swimming pool with marble columns and shiny floors or glass industrial things. And I wander through that house. A recent version of that dream was when I found that the master bedroom and the queen size bed was right next to the kitchen with the cast iron old-fashioned stove, so you could literally make breakfast in bed. Sometimes I wander through the impossible house looking for the bathroom, wondering why on earth they never bothered putting a bathroom in this impossible house, when of course I wake up and realize there was a reason why I was having that particular dream. It was actually 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago now, when my dream changed, because it wasn't that I was wandering through a random impossible house. It was the same house night after night after night. And I got to know this house very well, coming up the stairs to the main, door, which was blue for some reason. And inside there was copper colored carpeting. And there were 5 bedrooms. I was upstairs where the bedrooms were in a teeny little linen closet. And there was, the kitchen and a downstairs family room and then a basement family room with other bedrooms there. As I dreamed about this house night after night, I saw all the little secret things, the closets and, the cold storage that ended up running the whole length of the house, and so many things as I kept dreaming about it night after night, this endless recurring dream. And about that time, we were thinking about moving, and we had put our house up for sale and it sold. It was under contract and it was time to go look for our own house. And we had decided on the town, that we wanted to live in. And I met with the real estate agent and we went looking at houses. It was the second house. As we turned into the cul-de-sac, I had that goose flesh, I just shivers. My hair was standing up on my arms because I saw quite literally the house that I had dreamed of night after night after night. I saw that there was a little, iron railing leading up to the blue door. And it was such a strange feeling as I walked up with the real estate agent and she knocked on the door and a man answered it. And he looked at us and he looked at me a little strangely. And we said, we were here to see the house. And he goes, that's so funny because I had just barely put it back up as a listing. And he opened the door and I walked into quite literally the house of my dreams. There it was, the copper colored carpeting, and going upstairs to those bedrooms. I knew where the linen closet was, and everything that I had dreamed of, I was actually seeing in real life in real time. And it was this strange and surreal moment. And I went to the owner and I said, how is it that you said that you put the house back on the market? And he said, well, yeah, we had it, I never intended to sell this house. I intended to rent it, but we can't keep renters. And I said, what's wrong with the house? Why would you do that? And he said, well, honestly, they say that the house is haunted. They say that a woman wanders through this house night after night after night. Now, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I don't know if I really believe in ghosts. I try not to think about it too much. So when he said that, I kind of said, I said that. I said, I don't know that I believe in ghosts. And he looked right at me and he said, lady, maybe you should start believing in ghosts, because if I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't have believed it. But the woman who haunts this house every night is you. Well, needless to say, we bought the house and we've lived here for 20 years now, and I have never seen a sign of a ghost. We're very happy here. Thank you.
Did you have like an exorcist of the house first, just to be sure?
Nope.
Okay.
See, fun.
There you go.
All right. So is that one of those ones that's in one of your collections, or that you
It
do
is
orally?
not. It is not. The funny thing is how true that story actually is. But because a heck of a lot of it's true.
I mean, all the stories we tell are true except for the parts that aren't.
Exactly. I was going to say all stories are true. Some stories are more true than others.
we learned that from Animal Farm. All animals are equal. Some are just more equal than others. I just paraphrased that a little bit. Did had you described that house, that dream, to anyone in your family?
No. I do talk about my wandering through the house dreams many times, and I'll say, oh, I had another house hunting dream. Recently, because I've been teaching, it's running into I'm wandering through the school trying to find my classroom. And just the other day, I had a version of it where my classroom was actually an amphitheater with stairs going down and a double chalkboard, where above the chalkboard was a bunch of stuff. And I found my opal earrings that I had put in that morning hiding up there in my dream. Go figure.
Storytellers' brains are wild places. Just like authors, they're just going and going and going and going and telling stories to themselves even when they're asleep.
I have weird dreams.
That's true.
Okay. So that is an interesting one. Now, specifically, we'll talk before we wrap this up about the Haunted Yuletide.
Yes.
What kind of stories can we expect from that anthology? I'll link to that in the show notes, and we will have you and Jay back to talk more in a more dedicated fashion about it. But if you wanted to give like an overview of the Haunted Yuletide anthology, like how would you pitch it?
It starts just after Thanksgiving, and all of the stories are held within that holiday season, and it ends with midnight on New Year's Eve and the end of the holiday season as we know it. And the stories are all different kinds. Some of them are really chilling. Some draw in old stories and traditions. Some bring in family ghosts. Some are funny and adventurous and silly, and everyone is different and unique in its very own way, but they're all tied together with hauntings at Christmas.
Okay. So, Jana, did you have any questions since you mentioned the anthology? Have you read it? Do you have any questions for her about it?
Well, no, we have to save that for the next podcast.
Well, yeah.
But yes, I have read it a couple of times, and I do have favorites. And no, I'm not going to tell you which ones they are because we will be back for that for another podcast. But I do have a closing question.
Okay.
So because you mentioned this, that finding your way as a storyteller is difficult.
Yes.
If a up-and-coming storyteller, somebody who wanted to make this jump into more than just telling stories to their friends and family all the time, if you could give them any, say, 2 pieces of advice, things they would need to do to be a really good storyteller and then to make that jump. So whether that's how they learn stories or who do they talk to, what are the couple of words of advice you would give to somebody who would like to try this out for themselves? And then anything else will have to wait for another podcast.
We'll have to do that. Find your people. I didn't know that there was a storytelling guild. And when I got involved with the storytelling guild, I found other people who were interested in storytelling, but it also was the thing that opened up opportunities because people will call the storytelling guild to say, hey, we're looking for somebody for telling stories for this or that. And I ended up going to a lot of places to perform, and it really helped me develop as a storyteller. The second thing that I would recommend is find a mentor. Find a storyteller who can work with you and push you and teach you the ropes. I definitely had that in that very first storyteller that came to hear me when I was performing at my little arts festival. And because of her, I ended up doing things like auditioning for the ghost tours or recording stories on a CD or doing so many podcasts. A lot of the things that I have done have been because I had somebody to encourage and kind of guide me along that path too, and push me in the right direction. So those are the two things that I would recommend. Find your people, and if you can, find a mentor.
Okay, and how do you recommend someone find those mentors?
If you do a search, you will find storytelling guilds, storytelling organizations, probably in your state that won't be too far apart and easy to find. Start going to those meetings. Start looking at libraries are a great place to find storytellers, because guess what librarians do is they share stories to their people. In fact, a lot of people mistake me for a librarian. It's like, what stories do you read when you perform? It's like, oh no, I don't read the story, I tell it. But it is a good place to start looking. But look for storytelling events in your area, start going to those, and then start getting to know the storytellers.
As a side note, that's an underrated librarians or an underrated asset. Most people don't realize if you go to your library, they have lots and lots of events there, and most people don't take advantage of them. If you're staying at home, because we've got a couple housewives that listen, domestic engineers, whatever the proper term is these days, that listen, and they don't realize there are so many events at local libraries for them, for their kids as they age, for teenagers, gaming clubs, book clubs, like the whole. Even things that aren't necessarily book related. It's almost like the town square, as it were, for communities with the way they host events.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's still a cultural hub. That's my daughter learned how to play chess at the library because they had this ginormous rollout mat that was always there with the chess set up. And if you would ask a librarian, they would come over and play with you as long as they, had somebody else to watch the desk. Or sometimes they would I think they could just summon them from thin air. Like there's a chess expert hanging out in the stack somewhere, and she'd go, "Oh, you come over here and help these kids play." And so she actually learned from me, but that's where we did it, because it was this giant board with these huge pieces that worked very well for small hands. So it's that kind of stuff that you think that is not what I would have thought would be at my local library, and yet that's where I taught my daughter to play chess.
That's a great place to start.
Not many people play chess these days. That's a sad thing. It teaches you a lot, your brain development. It's a good skill.
Mm-hmm.
So if people wanted to track you down on the wild, wild interwebs, where might they find you?
If you go to the Utah Storytelling Guild website, I'm listed there. That's where you can find a lot of the information and what I tell, because I don't just do ghost stories. I also have a website that is horribly out of date, but www.talesbyjulie.com. And I pop up on podcasts. I have been a board member of the Story Crossroads Storytelling Festival, and I do have some videos as part of that.
Cool.
Which is not a link that I included, and I can do that if you want.
Sure. We'll add that to the end of what I already have. This is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book, so do your part, people. And if you go check out that Haunted Yuletide anthology, be sure to leave a review. I bet they've even got at least one Krampus in there somewhere, because how could you not?
I don't know if Krampus is in there, but we do have,
Well, now you've got a reason to do volume 2.
Right? We have to. We be careful how you spell Santa when you write your letters to Santa. There's a hint for one story. And we have ancient old goddesses that might show up in Christmas symbolism that don't necessarily want to be worshipped in that way.
I just wonder how many ancient deities and demons and all the like have been summoned by people accidentally misspelling the IKEA stuff when they read it out loud.
You have to be so careful.
Stuff happens.
Yes.
Yep. Internet recipes for soup, man.
Yes.
That's how you get demons.
All right, so Jana, I know you're a reoccurring guest, and one of these days I will remember to sit down and add you to our link tree. But until that day happens, and it is not today, people, until that day happens, how might we find you on the wild interwebs?
As you all know, I am the loser of Internet Hide and Seek. I'm very, very easy to find. You can find me at opalkingdompress.com or at linktree, linktr.ee/opalkingdompress. And I have a bunch of links in there. And if you look for Jenna Ray or for Jana S. Brown or for other pen names that we're not talking about today, you can find me. I'm here, there, and everywhere.
Okay. All right, and this is where you find us. And dear listener, you can go to our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink those coffee brand coffee products until it pours out of their eyeballs and we float away on a river of caffeinated, delicious goodness.
And it is cold enough to drink their hot chocolate, which is amazing.
Ready. It's time.
It's time.
And if you want some of that coffee brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And even better, you are shopping local. This is not a drop shipping operation. They are actually roasting these beans in the continental United States and shipping. They do, I believe, ship abroad now if you order them through through Amazon. If you order them direct, we get the kickback. If you go to Amazon, you just get, prime shipping and happy to you. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for coming on, Julie. This was a lot of fun, and we will also have to track you down and have you back on again.
I would be delighted.
We will peer pressure you until you say yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. All righty, with that, we're going to hit the end.